I'm Tom Schuller. I'm director of Longview, which is a think tank that promotes longitudinal and life course research.
You talked about the idea of a life course approach to lifelong learning. I mean, for the people who weren't in the session, could you just very briefly say what that is in a summary?
Yes, we've tried to look at the life course overall, dividing it into these 4 stages. We take the first stage is going up to 25, starting at 18 because that's when people are adults, but then 25 to 50, 50 to 75 and 75 plus. And the reason for drawing those lines is a mix of demographic factors, labour market factors, when do people go into work, when do they start leaving employment, biological factors, so 75 mostly people start having chronic illnesses that reduce their dependency and so on. So it's a mix of different factors that make us draw these lines there, and the challenge is to people to think about the life course in a different way, through a different set of lenses, if you like.
You talk about the inequity of funding that goes with different life courses, and you know there's a majority of funding that's available for people in the younger age brackets. What kind of proportion would you like to see if you was given a redistribution?
Yeah.
Would you see equity right across the board?
Well, not equity in the sense of level funding for all of the age groups. I mean, I think we're realistic. Maybe that would happen in 100 years' time. But what we saw in the analysis is that 86% of the total of public and private funding goes on the first age group, so that's the 18 to 24s. About 11% goes, 11 to 12% on the 25 to 50s, and the 50 plus, it's really peanuts. What we say is if you reduce the 86 to 80, then you can have the doubling of resources going into learning for the 4th age. You can almost double 3rd age opportunities, and you can boost by 50% roughly 2nd age learning opportunities. But here's the catch, which I actually didn't have time to go into in the presentation. Because the numbers of young people are going down, you can do that whilst retaining the same level of per capita funding for young people. So actually, it's a painless operation, or it should be. Of course, it's not, because the whole question of funding for higher education in particular, which swallows the lion's share, is a really hot issue. But when you look at it in this overall life course context, that's the case you can make for it.
I was thinking about how the demographics are changing, and Europe is facing several problems to do with medical care and cost of medical care as the population gets older and older. There's consequences there when we don't do things in medicine for that population, but what do you see as the consequences if we don't actually make a more equitable funding arrangement for people and this demographic that's going larger in the forefront?
Well, it's a good question, because the whole question of the relationship between education and health is a major one. Health expenditure in all OECD countries is going up much faster than GDP or growth of any kind, and faster than educational expenditure. And the argument, one of the arguments we make in the report, is for the preventive effect, if you like, of education in helping people look after themselves, not just as individuals, but collectively also. We talk about this citizens curriculum with 4 capabilities, and one of the key capabilities is health, and that's what we mean by it. Now, to develop that kind of capability, you know, this is not just health literacy, learning to eat fruit and stop smoking and so on. It is a much broader sense of capability than that, but it's going to be really crucial. The difficulty, of course, is that your health minister does not want to spend money on education, because that's the business of the education minister. Still less does the education minister want to spend money on activities that are going to have only a health benefit and not an education benefit. So it's an absolute classic for sort of intersectoral cooperation and trying to get people to say seriously, you know, there's a synergy between our two areas. But you put your finger on a really crunch issue. The demographies, the rate at which health expenditure is going up is really serious, both public and private forms of expenditure. And unless we enable people to manage their own health better, this is going to be a real serious problem.
It's almost like the only solution is to bring governments together and stop seeing things as compartmentalised.
Yeah, absolutely.
And seeing the citizen as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And of course, not only dependent on public money, you know, there's private money involved, and there's also attitudes and so on. But it's getting people, getting a context where people are aware of these issues and feel they can do something about it, both in relation to themselves, but also in relation to the environments that they live and work in. So health and sort of citizenship overlap a great deal as well. So civic capabilities are very relevant to the issue you've just pointed out to, as well as, you know, including actually incidentally particularly mental health, because we know that mental well-being has quite strongly related to civic participation and to people having the confidence and the ability to do it.
There's a lot of ideas in your reports and the points you made. So my final question is that there may be people who see this interview on the web in the future. What one single idea or what one thought from your work would you want to leave those people watching this with who may have not attended? So what one idea do you want to take away from this?
Right. Well, Learning Through Life, which is the main report from the inquiry, I think really focuses on the need for a different set of lenses for thinking about the way we distribute learning opportunities across the life course. So what I'm above all trying to do is to get people to take just a step back and say, looking at these broad demographic, economic, employment factors, don't we need to think about things in a different way, divide up the life course differently and distribute opportunities differently?